So, you can allocate your resources effectively if you have data, right? I should spend more here. I have a client we were talking with last week who was saying she is able to be part of like a directory for her business through this training that she has. And I'm like, I'll tell you if it's worth it to spend the $1,500 a year on it, because I will tell you if those people are coming from the directory to your website, right? You want to know if you should buy that or not again, because sometimes she's like, what's it worth, right? So those are the kind of things you can allocate, you can, and really start to justify your choices that you're making as well.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode. I'm bringing you something special. Again, this week, we're going to be taking a peek behind the scenes inside the Scalable Marketing Machine Accelerator. So as part of the accelerator, I bring in experts each and every month to go deep into certain marketing tactics. And this week, we're talking all things competitive analysis. So Sandra Scaiano walks us through some really compelling tactical strategies on how we can gain edge on our competitors. So let me tell you a little bit about Sandra, and then I'm going to get on into the episode. So with over 20 years in PR and marketing for the world's most recognizable brands, Sandra Scaiano helps entrepreneurs and small business owners build their businesses through web design, SEO, and course and membership site development. She's the host of the Long Game podcast with Sandra Scaiano, which I was a guest on, so you can check out that episode, where she talks about building businesses, digital strategy, and mindset in her unique, relatable style. She's the creator of the Peak Framework, a 4-step foundational framework for building out offers in your business. And she is with us today, taking us behind the scenes on some of the work that she does when she's developing websites, SEO strategies, and marketing strategies for her clients. This is a super tangible episode with a lot of really great tips. So I can't wait for you to follow along and enjoy. Sandra and I met while I was a guest on her podcast, and we just hit it off, both Jersey girls. But Sandra is just like a master at website but so much more in terms of marketing support for messaging and getting those conversions and really being a great mentor on how to sort of up level everything when it comes to marketing in your business. So today we're going to talk more specifically about website stuff and anything else that you wanted to pull out of your rabbit's hat. So why don't you take a minute to introduce yourself properly and give us a little taste of what you're going to talk about today.
Yeah. And I can share my screen. Is that okay?
Yes, please.
Okay, is that set up? And let me put this to presenter mode because you know how that is.
Look at how cute that is. I love it. That's literal ray of sunshine.
I try and keep it positive here. Yeah. Even though some people say doom and gloom, I'm positive about it. Okay, so we are talking about competitive research today. I know when we spoke, that was something that was of an interest to your audience. So I really wanted to go down that alleyway and talk about what are the potentials there, why you should be interested in competitive research, what you should be doing with that, and why it's important. So to start, and I will go into an introduction as well. I just wanted to talk about the fact that we know everything's changing, right? There's a lot of overwhelm out there. And I also think though, with some of that overwhelm and exhaustion, people being over social media, things like that, there are a lot of opportunities, and it's just where you look and where you decide to focus. And with that feeling of overwhelm, because there are so many options about where to put our efforts, people really have a lot of uncertainty about what strategies they should be using and what's going to work. And so competitive research is really about what if you could see what's driving the success in your industry. Let's see. It's all right. Because really, it's not enough to just guess at what might work, right? You need data, and you need to see what's actually happening and moving in the industry right now. So if you could just take a moment and look inside and see what's happening, you could really get off the hamster wheel of DMing every person you meet on the internet.
Exactly. And I think I just want to give like one bit of context, because when I had asked you to do this particular topic, we had come off of the Lachey session that we had a couple weeks back. And, we're really talking about conversions, right? We're talking about how to get those conversions from your marketing funnel. And what's so great about what Sandra does is that, the step before that, like the step really before that is really understanding your unique selling points and really having a deep understanding of them. So when Sandra's creating all that she does for marketing, but especially like building websites and building messaging, the first part of that whole process is going through what she's going to show us today. And she has, as you mentioned, like unbelievable access to tools about like keywords and spying on competitors. So she's going to show us exactly how she uses that. But I just wanted to put that thread through for you guys on how everything is interconnected and how we're going to execute like using this knowledge that we learned today. So I'll shut up.
Yeah, and when you talk about finding your unique selling proposition, you can use competitive research to help you do that, because you can see what your competitors' take is on the similar topics in your industry. And then you could say, well, I don't agree with that. I would say this. And that's the whole point of this, is it's not about copying your competitors. It's about getting data to really understand the market landscape and then gaining insights from that to inform your strategies and see what resonates with you, what is really happening, and you saying, I could go off on that and really like do something there. That's where you're really helping to unearth your USP.
100%. And I'm just going to tie it into the accelerator learning, because this is something that we do, which is like a brand clarity process, which like Allison, we just finished it maybe like last month, where we do like a competitive analysis. But when we're doing it, it's really based on like our gut feeling. But what I love about what Sandra's going to show us is like, if we take another step and like look at some of the tools and some of her strategies, we can go beyond like just what we feel is going on with the competitors. And we can actually look at what's working for the competitors. And then we can make our own version of it. Because as she said, it's not about copying, but success leaves clues. If one of our biggest competitors or someone that's killing in our space their offer structured a certain way, or their wording's a certain way, or their messaging is a certain way, we certainly can borrow some of that stuff that they've figured out already to craft our own stuff.
We do look at other people. What I think is so interesting is that, there is this wave of see behind the scenes of my launch and all of those things. And those are really great and interesting. But, if you take a guru like an Amy Porterfield, you can't build the same business that she built all those years ago, because the landscape has changed. There's COVID and there's different mechanisms and things. And she was able to capitalize on what was happening at that time. So now that she has this audience that she's cultivated, she can do certain things that might not trickle down in the same way if you try and do them or use those tools. And that's what's really interesting about this, is you can see what's happening. When I do competitive research for my clients, I say, give me the top dogs, and then give me a couple people on your level, right? Like we're going to see, you're able to see what is unique because they are putting money behind it, but then you can also see what is happening in your industry. And a lot of this too is we tend to follow these, I'm going to call them gurus, but you may have a very distinct market that is different from their market. And what competitive research allows you to do is really talk specifically to what is happening in your industry and in your market. All right, well, let me introduce myself now that I've already gone off on a few tangents. So I'm Sandra Scaiano. I'm a web designer, SEO strategist, podcast host, energetic thinker. I keep saying I've got to buy the t-shirt. I'm not yelling at you. This is how I talk. I keep saying it to my kids all the time. So I have a podcast called The Long Game, and Victoria is guest upcoming very shortly. The long game is my approach to business, right? It's the day in and day out philosophy that you got to show up, you got to do the work, and there are no quick fixes for long-term success. And I truly believe that, like, we are all in it for the long term. Those people who I talk to are in it for the long term. And, on my podcast, I talk business building and digital strategies and mindset, and we all do it in a really unique and relatable way. So if you're a podcast listener, go check it out, please. Just a little bit about me. I am a pop culture lover. I worked in the fashion and art worlds for over 20 years. And during the 90s, I was a VP of marketing for a clothing company that I shot the hip hop and urban culture scene as a photographer. I have a Bachelor of Fine Art in photography. And then I launched some of the biggest clothing lines for Eminem, Jay-Z, things like that. I worked in licensing. And then I moved to an agency where I was creating strategies for these big recognizable brands. And that's where I really sunk my teeth into that strategy piece. But literally 9 months pregnant, I lost my job on a Friday and I went into labor on a Monday. So my world was completely shook up and I decided that I was going to learn how to code. I knew I understood strategy. I knew I could do all of those things, but and even the physical execution of things, like we did a lot of events and things like that. But now I needed to learn how to do the digital execution. So literally babe on boob in my Brooklyn apartment at the counter, I sat there and taught myself how to code. And it is 15 years later and I am doing websites, SEO, all these years. And I love it. So that's just a little bit of my backstory and how I got to where I am today. So, all right.
Love it.
Let's move on and talk about competitive research. So, are my people in your way? Let me move that. I'm not sure you guys are not seeing that. Okay.
No.
So the, competitive research was something that previously we thought was only for those big companies, right? And now with these different tools, it's really accessible to small business and solopreneurs. For me, this whole idea came about. I've always been doing keyword research and SEO and implementation for my clients, but I've really started going further into the whole competitive landscape after I had a corporate client who I put this big proposal together for them, and it's tens and tens of thousands of dollars of, we're going to do the research, we're going to create the plan, we're going to implement all of these things. And I was like, this is what solopreneurs need, because they are at a point right now where the market has changed and they're like, what's working? I'm sick of Instagram or, all of these things. And so I really put some effort into scaling this down, scaling my ideas down that I created for my corporate client, and created something for solopreneurs. So that's what we're going to talk about today, the why you need to do competitive research. It's now accessible to you, and all of the benefits and things that you can think about, or the insights that you can get so that you can make informed decisions for your business. All right. Why competitive research matters. It's really about understanding your market position, right? It comes together with business planning. It's funny because I don't really hear people talk about competitive research a lot. Like most people, when they talk about SEO, is, do your keyword research and things like that. And this is a part of the SEO landscape, but it's also another piece that rounds out your whole marketing and your positioning. So, it helps to identify your unique value position. If you're looking at what your competitors are doing and you're seeing that, you can say, oh, I have a different take on that, right? So it also helps you stay current because you can see trends that are happening. You might say, oh, that's something that I feel comfortable with and I want to do. And you can anticipate changes as well. Like if you're looking at things, you can say, oh, I see what's happening and people are doing this, and I want to do something different. I want to do something completely 360, right? It also helps you make data-driven decisions. And this is really most important. And I'm going to pop to my next slide and then pop back because I do love this quote that, in a world full of opinions and expert advice, data is your most reliable guide. So, you can allocate your resources effectively if you have data, right? You know, I should spend more here. You know, I have a client we were talking with last week who was saying she is able to be part of a like a directory for her business through this training that she has. And I'm like, I'll tell you if it's worth it to spend the $1,500 a year on it, because I will tell you if those people are coming from the directory to your website, right? You want to know if you should buy that or not again, because sometimes she's like, oh, what's it worth, right? So those are the kind of things you can allocate, you can, and really start to justify your choices that you're making as well. And then you can identify gaps and opportunities. You can see what is happening in the marketplace, and you can identify a space that you can fill. You know, everybody's talking about this and no one's talking about that. I love that. I'm going to talk about that. And it totally relates to the whole industry, right? So you can make your mark. And you can really differentiate yourself by capitalizing on those gaps and opportunities, and you can move yourself higher in visibility. If you identify a gap, a keyword gap, you can capitalize on that and get visibility from that. So there's,
yeah, I want to say too, I think what's so cool about what you just said, and that's very relevant for everyone, is like, there's, if we look at the data and we understand like what is working or what is clicking or what is connecting, and if we can do that in a way that's like kind of quick and digestible, which I'm sure you're going to help us with, is that, then we start, everything we do becomes much more intentional. And I think that we can see brands that do that, where they're like, oh, people like this, let me give them more of this. There's so many, like, I'm gonna tell you, like, even like TikTok personalities that will say, you know what, like, one good example is like this guy that was a chef, and he made some videos on like how to create specific butters, like so random, but he saw that it was popular, and he was like, you know what, I'm gonna be the butter guy. And the guy, his account exploded, and now he's like doing a cookbook. He's like being interviewed on Good Morning America, just because he took signals from the data and leaned all the way in. And it's almost like, in some ways, that faster path to success. And it's how we are not just like on this hamster wheel. Like, we're working so hard, we're making content. And if we're not looking at the data, we can blink our eyes and see our businesses 5 years from now, 10 years from now, in the same place. So I think that this topic for me is so, it's so important, but it's something that not a lot of women are speaking about. And it's also, it feels a little bit inaccessible. So that, like,
totally. Right? And, when you scale it down, it is accessible. I mean, I've created a way for everyone to come in through that as well, but we all have access. And I'm going to show you today, when we get to some of the examples, how there are things that you can do on your computer right now and go check out. You don't have to pay for it, right? Some free ways that you can go and look. Some of this other stuff, yes, you have to have the tools, but there are more accessible ways to get to those tools as well. But then there are so many things that you can do for free and just keep an eye out on. So, it is about also reaffirming your direction. So many times we're like, I'm just doing this because it's what I'm supposed to do. Somebody said, or I'm hearing this, and, or that guru said that. And again, that's working for them and their business and their established audience for the past 10 years, right? You're in a different place. So I think, competitive research can help you feel good about the decisions that you're making and the directions that you're going. All right, so what are some of the insights that we can gain? And I just want to let you know too, I'm going to kind of bang through some of this stuff just so we all have a common understanding. And then I'm going to hop to my software and give you some real world examples. So that'll just be the layout of this. Okay, so some of the insights, definitely one, are traffic sources and strategies. We can see, go ahead, Victoria.
No, I was just like, oh yeah, that was like an unlock.
Traffic sources and strategies, right? Like, we can see exactly, basically the software is like a look inside your competitor's Google Analytics. So you can see the traffic that is coming into their site, where it's coming from, how much is coming, all of that. And that is really insightful, because The second half of the competitor piece is the analysis piece. So you have the access piece to look at it, but then you need to interpret it. And it's how do you interpret this? And what direction does that bring you to when you're looking at all of this data? And you can see where partnerships that people have. Oh, that is sending them a lot of traffic. It's a referral traffic. You could go and call those people and say, hey, I want to be on your podcast too, because you're sending a lot of traffic over, for instance, right? So, and that's something to look at. Let's move over here real quick and then I'll jump back. These are the different types of traffic sources that we talk about. We talk about direct, where people are entering a name brand in, or, going directly to someone. Referral traffic is a link from somewhere else. There's organic search, where people are putting into Google and or a search engine and seeing what they find. There's paid search, where they're clicking ads. Organic social, paid social, email. You can also see what's coming from email, and you can see what's coming from display ads. And a lot of this, the ad pieces in terms of this are social ads and Google, Bing, search engine type of ads. So just so you understand, and I'll show you how that looks like when someone's getting a lot of direct traffic, it means they've established a brand, right? So people know their name and they're coming for them. So other insights we can gain are keyword rankings and the opportunities there. We can see what keywords and positions that different competitors are ranking for. And then you can say, oh, I can see how difficult it is. I should try that. Or maybe I'll go for a longer tail keyword and find another opportunity to start to peck away at that, right? You can also see there's a lot with content performance. You can see what content is driving that traffic. And I am going to say I'm focusing in my examples on these first three, just to keep this somewhat contained, or we could be here all day. I didn't think you wanted a weekend workshop. So, but content, they all sort of overlap as well, because, when you're talking about content performance, you're talking about engagement, and then that overlays into traffic and even keyword rankings and opportunities. So all of this, and, one of the things that my clients really enjoy receiving from working with me and their analysis is I'll give them 10 pieces of content that they need to write, and it's all data-based. It's like, this piece of content is doing really well. Put your spin on it, right? Like, I am that person who's, when someone says, oh, I should do this, I'm like, you should also expand that and do this, right? Like, I'm that person in the Facebook group. Because content, there are so many opportunities, and we can do so much with it when we repurpose it and take it away. So there's a lot of visibility there. It can also give you clues, competitor analysis on backlink profiles, and also your user experience and your website optimization. I mean, we all have done some SEO and DIY'd ourselves probably to a certain point. And that's great. And you should be doing that. And I am always shocked at how many people I talk to when I say something and they haven't done some of the basic best practices things. I'm like, you're in business for 12 years already. What are you talking about? Like, so that piece is also a big part of it. You can really help your user experience. And I'll show you some simple ways when we're looking at some of the other data. But I do just want a side note of, like, if you have DIY'd yourself or worked with a SEO professional, like, there is so far that you can move yourself that way. And then this is an additive, and how you can move forward from that and what's happening now. A lot of times this is get the state of affairs, the state of the union of your industry, and then you can check in on it every once in a while. It's not like you've got to be doing it all the time.
Can I just have one question though, because I want to see your take on this for 1 second. In terms of the SEO for any business of any size, there's certain things that you can do, like on page, on the website. There's some things that you can do actively, like backlink strategy and things like that. But essentially, what I think a lot of people don't make a connection towards, or maybe it seems a little bit like out of reach, is how the content strategy that you execute actually helps feed all of that engine, and it could work well if it's done more consciously, or maybe it could not work as well if it's done unconsciously. And I feel like I think that's a piece, because a lot of times like SEO strategists, they'll also be looped in with what blogs they should be doing and optimizing the blogs or even writing the blogs. And I think that sometimes we don't make that connection, but it is very important, right?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the content, first of all, every time you publish a piece of content on your site, the search engines track it. And I'm going to show you that as well when we're in our example. And I'm going to show you how valuable that is to know about that. But it causes them to come back around and know who you are better. So they're able to pick up on your keywords and things like that. And a content strategy should be what's relevant to your audience, what do they need to know, and what are they engaging in and interested in, which you can find from your competitor analysis as well. And then you tie it in with some of those other strategies, like using the proper keywords or and optimizing for that. There are all lots of little technical things that go into optimizing a piece of content. And I do want to also mention that content piece goes off-site as well. Some of what we're able to do also translates to Pinterest, to TikTok, right? Like when you do a keyword search for your brand, those words are out there on all the platforms. So it might not be the exact term for your website that works on TikTok, but it's a starting point for you to then put in TikTok search. Let's see what this keyword does and what it brings up. Is that the stuff I want to be a part of and what I'm talking about? Yes. Then that's what you need to be using in your descriptions, things like that, right? In your captions. So you are able to use this cross-platform because this is information that people are searching for, right? And you have to think about too, Pinterest is a search engine. It's a visual search engine. YouTube is a search engine, right? So these words, even though they may be on different platforms and might not be exact, they're great starting points for that.
And just as another sidebar there, I think like the future, and maybe I think you probably agree with me, is social search. Like
already.
I think that we think of search engines like in the traditional sense, which is funny because Deborah here is actually building a search engine right now. But so you guys probably have a lot more to talk about offline. But the way that the buyers, like as we have the younger generations that build more of the buying power, I think that they're going to be going first to the social platforms instead of just Google. Like Google will. And maybe they'll evolve. But I mean, if you're looking for advice, if you're looking to buy stuff, people are going to YouTube or going to TikTok or Instagram and searching. So the ways that we can utilize that for our business, and all kinds of businesses, right, are going to be utilizing social for search. So
that's just how the whole landscape is evolving. It goes back to what we were saying before. You could build your business now off of those ideas, but it wasn't what people used previously, right?
Exactly.
So, it's kind of always knowing what's going on. I'm a long game person, but that doesn't mean I close my eyes and just say old school business, right? Like you still have to know what trends are happening and keep up with what's going on in the market. All right, we talked about traffic sources, and then it's really about turning your insights into action. So, what are some of the things that you can do when you have your competitive research, right? You can develop a tailored marketing strategy. You can really use that data to inform your decisions to focus on these high impact areas. It's like creating this content roadmap you can create, right? You can plan content that fills the gap, that meets the audience needs from your own perspective. And then you can optimize that for search and engagement. You can also, there's a million things, but I'm just rattling off a few right now. You can refine your SEO approach and really target these keywords that you need and improve your standings with SEO. You can diversify your traffic sources and you can enhance your user experience. And I really think this is important because the more user-friendly and easy things are, like I'm all about the customer journey and that customer experience as well. So I always make sure to put that in. All right. Oh, and this is really interesting. I'll come back to this at some point, but I wanted to show you when it goes to talking what you were just talking about, Victoria, is that, there are these different intentions when you're searching, and to be mindful of them. We're going to talk about that when we get to the keywords, but there are the different reasons that you are searching. You are searching for a specific website, or you want information. You are doing a commercial investigation. You are comparing products, reviews, things like that. And then there is that transactional piece. So that really comes into it as we get forward. So I was this for you guys. So, all right, I'm gonna switch my share and go into the, let's see, let me share my other screen, and we're going to go into some examples. Any questions, or you want to save them, or you guys are keeping up?
Yeah, what I just wanted to highlight, and sorry, go ahead, Deborah. Go ahead.
Yes, I was interesting. What tools do you use to find the traffic source?
We're going into that right now.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, I'm going to show you. And then, do you have something?
No, but I just think that the thing that just keeps hitting me over the head is like, doing things based on what they want, not what you think. And so much strategic stuff that we do is based on just what we think, like what we feel. And I think that a lot of times we do that because we don't, like, we want to get things done quickly, right? Things move at a fast pace, but taking the time to reverse engineer a little bit and make sure that you're doing not what you think, but what they want, right? Is going to be so important. Yeah.
And what you see is out there. And that doesn't mean if you feel this piece of content that you want to create would be so good and you don't see it out there, that's even more reason to create it. I see a gap and nobody's talking about this. Like, that can just, reaffirm what your instincts were telling you. So it's all right, let me get to it. It's super cool. I have multiple tabs open. So I literally have like little note cards to tell me which tab is what, just so if you see me looking down, because I'm like, oh, I hate the tab flipping back and forth all the time. Okay, so let's go to this. Oh, actually, no, let's go to that and share. Okay, so this is SEMrush, and it's what I'm using to find this. And I have a few different examples I'm going to take you through. Some well-known brands we all know, brands in our market, but just to give you an idea of what's possible here. So this is Sephora, and this is just like an overview of their website. It talks about how much organic traffic they're getting, how much paid traffic, the number of backlinks they're getting. You can do, I'm looking up the US right now, but there's international. So it has all of this information of keywords. It talks about keywords by intent, which we just talked about, and breaks it down into percentages. One thing I think is really interesting with a brand like Sephora is branded versus non-branded traffic, right? They have created a brand name. So, sometimes when you go up against the big dogs in your industry or add them, that's what we find. Like, their search terms, that their keywords that they are ranking for, number one, are their names or things like that, right? Because it is so well known. And that's when we get to solopreneurs and our smaller businesses, it's like, okay, how well known a brand are you? Are people searching you by your brand name in your industry? There's no wrong answer to that. It's just how you approach things going forward, and what you're up against in terms of your competitiveness for keywords. So this I always find interesting too, is this competitive positioning map, and it's showing where the overlap is. And we'll dig further into this, but based on, like, Kohl's is over here, they sell cosmetics, and they even have Sephora's inside their stores. I think some of them are, but they're over here because they're also clothing and housewares. Whereas Sephora and Ulta and, fragrancenet.com is over here, and they're all clustered together. And the overlap are the different keywords that they're ranking for.
Sorry, would that also mean that like where you overlap is where those are your closest competitors?
Yes.
Like
And
online?
what, in terms of your keyword overlap, is that positioning of organic search. So it's based on keywords. So, and that's really interesting thing, because once we get into this, I'll show you something later on where I worked with a client that, she is a healer, and like, when you go for words like healing, there's WebMD you're up against, right? So like, that's a different kind of healing. She is healing from abuse in a different way. So like, you've got to go down further. So like, she could use the word healing, but WebMD wouldn't be the correct type of positioning for her. So it's really interesting once you start going further down. And I will bring up her keyword research in a minute. And we use that keyword research to help her figure out the subtitle for her book that she just launched, that got into the Amazon #1 positions in her categories in the past few weeks. So like, you can use this to really inform all of these different pieces in your business. Also, the top paid keywords you can see. And I think this is really interesting too, because you can see that Sephora is investing in keywords of the brands that they support, right? Glow Recipe and Sol de Janeiro and all of that. Like, they are purchasing and doing paid keywords for these topics, because they sell a lot of that as well. So, those type of things are really interesting. And we'll also go into, you can see what these ads are, the text ads that they're putting on Google. You can see what their copy is, right? Here, they're talking about Glow Recipe and, your best-selling products. Like, so they're really investing in this, in these partners as well. And then you can see their backlinks of any brand. And does that make sense for you? You can follow through and go further on all of that. Does that make sense for you to call up and try and partner with someone?
Yeah, that alone, I think, is such a great way to approach getting any media coverage. It's like, if we know that there's popular backlinks where people are talking about something that's similar to your field, you may not even know that those websites exist, but they're driving tons of traffic for competitors. So that is
StealHerStyle.net is one of their top referring domains, right? And like, you could say, I'm a makeup brand, I would like to call them up and make sure they send them some of my product, right? And have them do a review of our makeup, or, so there's so much that you can glean from this. And you can also go to specific pages as well. So we'll talk about that. So I'm going to go into their traffic analysis. And this is the traffic that they are getting, their numbers. And I think this top part is really interesting, because we can see that right now they have almost 1 million visits to this fragrance URL. So they're really trending and pushing fragrance right now. And then we can also go and click newly detected, and we can see, this is where I was talking about new content coming up. We can see what are the latest pages and what are the new products, or what's coming up for a season, or for the holiday season, for instance, right? There's this soft matte cloud makeup that is a new page that's doing really well for them. It has, 2.6 million views. And so this stuff is really cool to be able to go in and look at this traffic. I want to go back. We'll go, to the overview here, but then again, we can look at their sources. So they have this trending page of perfume, and 99% of the traffic is coming direct, because they're going to a Sephora page and then linking in, right? So it's so interesting to see, an email is sending a little bit. It's not as much, but they are interlinking. They have a big interlinking strategy inside of Sephora. And that's where you can start to see, for this, they haven't done paid search or paid ads on it, really. Very little. Paid social, a little bit, right? So you can see, and we're talking about this one particular page, right? So this is where you can start to dial down and be like, what is my competitor doing? Another piece that we can do is we can start to look at the funnels of, and so we can search of your competitors. So we can search like what's in their basket and how many people are landing there. And then we can see going to the checkout. I'm going to show you that next. Like their basket gets 3.1 million page views. And then when we look up the checkout, there's 1.3 million. So they have a third of the people who put things in their cart go through to the checkout. So you can actually see how many customers they have and how that's working. It's like mind blowing.
So if we want to look at, and this is interesting because one question I get a lot is benchmarks, right?
Well, that's another piece that is benchmarking is very important on your own business.
Right. And obviously, if you're at a very different stage than a competitor you're looking at, you want to take that into consideration. But a lot of times when you're asking yourself the question like, okay, is my abandoned cart rate, or is my, are people opting into this, that, and the other? Like, is this in line with what the industry is seeing? Yes and no. And that's going to help you understand where you need to focus as well. So really looking at
your industry. That's what is so amazing about the competitor research is that it's your industry. I'm not looking, happens with Sephora is so far out of my realm as a solopreneur, but and it's not the norm, it's for their industry, right? So you can look and see what is happening. And you do have to infer some things, like you might want to say, thank you, because you want to see who gets to the thank you page, right? And we use different tools for checkouts and things like that. So, this one is a little easier because we know the name of the page, right? Type of thing. But you can start to look through those funnels.
I have a question. Like, let's say that I'm Ulta. I see all this information. How to maximize this information for Ulta Beauty, for example? How to take all this information to convert better in our website?
How would we use this information as a competitor of Ulta? Well, you would go, first of all, you could look at that, go back to this overlap piece and see where you're overlapping. I mean, right now we can see that Ulta has the common keywords are 109,000. So they're doing well. Ulta's at 8 million for traffic and Sephora's at 10 million. So they're really, chipping at each other's heels here. And I would then, for Ulta, I would think it is product-based. And I would go back up to this and I would follow and be checking very closely the newly detected pages and what products Sephora is investing in and promoting and what products we have at Ulta. And are we promoting those same brands? Are we doing that? And there's I'll also show you when we get to the ad piece. Like I looked up, I'm just going to hop now and go off. Okay, so this is Sephora's advertising. You guys this is free. You can go to the Facebook ads library and you can see what ads are being run. So even right now, they are partnering with their product partners. So here's Glow Recipe is doing an ad, but it's buy these at Sephora, stock your cart with these at Sephora. So not only there are Sephora ads and you can scroll down and we'll see what's happening, but many of these ads are product-based ads that are going to Sephora. So they're like partner ad dollars. And that is just really interesting. So I would pay attention to that if I was Ulta as well and say, what are those partnerships? How have they leveraged just getting this product on the floor? No, they've also said, you have to put some dollars behind your sell-throughs, right? So this goes into bigger picture ideas of what our marketing and what our relationships are going to be.
And we can begin to unravel their whole marketing strategy. And the other thing is like, it's so interesting because, have you ever seen those movies like where, I'm trying to think of these like Devil Wears Prada kind of movie where it's like the magazine comes out with like the feature and then the competitor comes out with like the same feature, right? But, and they're competing against like trying to, get on one trend or one story or whatever. But this is actually very interesting for seeing, okay, well, this is what they're leaning into. This is what's popular maybe because that example we saw about like the cloud matte page,
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking, oh, that must be something that someone in corporate have seen as being trendy on TikTok or whatever, and they're trying to capitalize on that moment. And Ulta can say, wow, how could we look at their stuff and do it better? So we can hop onto this trend, but we can actually execute it in a better way or do our creative in a different way. And that's how, and obviously in this case, or people listening to this podcast are probably not dealing with, of course, like big competitors on that level of intensity. But you can see how using this data, what I love with competitor research is like, what are people that are spending a shit ton more money on all of this finding? Because you can actually get that, you can glean those insights without having to pay the big fancy agencies or the big fancy consultants to tell it.
And that's one of the big differentiators in this business, is that those big companies, they have the marketing teams, they have the specialists, they have the agencies, and they're paying them to do this. And that's why when we do research, we say, give us the top dog in your industry, the person who's untouchable and leader, right? Give me 2 of them, and then we'll filter in with some others, and we can see what the trends are, we can see what's happening, but we can also learn from them. I mean, even for my corporate clients, I do that because I know this big conglomerate has access to everything, right? And you might be a smaller fish in the pond, but they're paying for that. They're not spending money on LinkedIn if it's not grossing something for them, right? Like, it's just how it is. I also wanted to show you, I did a competitive research of HubSpot, MailChimp, Kit, which is ConvertKit now, and MailerLite, just to show you like how you can do multiple brands. So we did the big brands. These are smaller in terms of compared to that, but how we can pull when you're looking at multiple things. And, you know, so they're color coded here, and you can see like who's getting their traffic direct, right? HubSpot, because you've got to log into that CRM, and that also counts. And those are things to think about. Like, do you want to exclude certain URLs, right? Like we saw this, I'll show you that there's like the list of the logins for HubSpot, right? Like when we're here, we know their login page is their, you know, it gets 5.9 million unique page views. So people are going and logging in. It's like their app login page is one of their most popular pages, right? So you can exclude some of that in your mind, and even in some of this, you can filter it out. But those are things to think about that go to their overall numbers, because they have a CRM service that they're doing online. So, you know, those are things to think about as well. So people are going direct. Where are they getting their, where are they permeating? I mean, email, HubSpot's the only one who's really doing a lot in terms of email to make this list even, you know, and to even show. So that's interesting. And then this is one of my favorite things is the traffic journey. And when you have multiple brands, you can list them out. And then where are people coming in and where are people going when they're leaving? So they're coming in from, you can talk about this traffic, and then you can see the, you know, they're coming from Google Organic. They're probably saying, what's an email provider, right? Or a CRM. And that traffic then comes here to HubSpot. Then when they leave, they're either going to Google. Some of them are going, 8% of them are going to MailChimp directly after they leave the HubSpot. So they're doing a comparison, right? You know, these are the things that you can infer.
Ooh,
it's so interesting.
So interesting.
And like, you know, for Sephora, it's like, well, they go to certain places and that, you know, so this stuff is really the peek behind, because then you can see like, what is your audience thinking as well? Okay,
all right, Sandra, we've got about 10 minutes left of the session. So I want to make sure that if there's any questions or something specific you guys want to dig into, you can ask Sandra specific questions about you. But I just want to say, like, the SEMrush site, there is like a free version. Now, obviously, Sandra's in the mega paid version and she uses it for her business.
Yeah.
But if you want to do some light research, like just surfacey kind of stuff, and start to dig into some of these things, I think they have some kind of offer.
Yeah, it's a limited time thing. So you get access, but you can't it's only for a time frame. But things like these, you can go to the meta ads and look up a brand and see. You can go, this works for Pinterest, this works for YouTube. You can do the ads on TikTok as well. Like you can go to the ad library and see some of this. You could also do some keyword research on your brand using some of the free keyword research tools. So, one of the things I did just want to show you is this type of competitive research. Like this is a spreadsheet that I will give to my clients, and you'll see at the bottom tabs, we've done different leadership coaches. And what's cool is that you can see, okay, this is the keyword. They're in the first position for it. What page does that take you to? And you can link to, it gives you a link to that page. What else is also interesting is doing the intent here and understanding why people are going to certain pages, right? Oh, I'm looking up this because I would like to buy something that's transactional, right? And those keywords, you look into that with when you're making your decisions on your keyword research, right? You're looking at the search volume and the keyword difficulty. You're taking in an understanding of what their intent is, right? I want to try and get people to purchase something. So let's see what keywords are there, right? That doesn't mean only go for transactional keywords, right? Like it's a funnel and you want people to learn about you and sign up for things and then get your email, and it's a process. But those are just some things to think about. And this is also interesting. This was another client that I worked on who, here's the seed keyword that, all of this research starts with the seed keyword, and then what was coming up and really going through and filtering this stuff, like trauma is just so broad, right? And it's like you could get all different kinds of trauma pieces, and a lot. What did we keep seeing? And one of the things I also try and do is really work on the question piece. What is a trauma response, right? That is a keyword in and of itself, like a long tail keyword that you can answer a question on. And that 880 people are searching that term, right? So it's really interesting when you start to dig in further to things and see what people are doing.
For these keywords, so if you're looking at a key, like those core keywords, and then you want to understand search volumes or whatever, do you do that on SEMrush, or do you do that? Because I always find it's very difficult to find, like I was using Google keywords and then I don't know, the product change or whatever. It's like a little bit more complicated. Well, what do you use to just kind of be searching basic volumes?
I use SEMrush because I'm in it. I'm in deep,
So that allows you to do those keywords.
Yeah. And it allows me to pull a lot of things. Here's the thing. And that's why, we talk about this accessibility now to it. Like there are a number of free tools that you can get started and you can do when you're ready for the next step. Like you can find someone who has this access, myself, someone else that you are comfortable with, because it's not a tool that you're buying just for yourself, like it's just not, you have to have, you have to amortize that cost, for it to really be worth it. So you can get in there and get some insight, and you can get some insight from the free stuff, but this is when you're ready to take that next step, right? You've done your first step. I tell everybody, go and DIY it yourself, get it started. Something is better than nothing, right? And you'll start to see results. And one piece of this, I just want to go to this next piece. Like this is in my competitive research project, I call it, what I do. And I include guidance on setting up the tools like a Google Analytics and things like that, so that you don't have to know how to use them for that to be collecting data for you. And I think that's really important, because you're able to go back to it at another time, or what is there. There's content there when you work with someone who understands how to interpret that, right? So those are pieces that I think are really important in your journey, so that because this isn't one and done. It's a one and done. You can get this and get an overhaul of information and be like, wow, I am set on a direction for a while. But you do want to check back in at some point. You want to look at your analytics. You want to look at how the market's changing. I want to keep tabs on if a competitor is adding new pages, right? I have software that I can say, follow this website and let's see, it'll notify us when there's a new page added, right? Like there are all these different things. So there are just check-ins that you do along the way and setting yourself up for that best positioning with these different tools.
Awesome. Awesome. So this is a great kind of flow, right? It's kind of like doing it, like kind of doing that analysis and sort of honing in on those keywords and then translating that into content. So this is a really good flow for how to sort of operationalize, like using all this info. We've got like 4 more minutes. So I don't know if you guys want to dig into anything else. There's where you can reach Sandra, sandrasky.com.
Thank you.
SKY, SANDRA. Guy.com.
Yep.
So, anything that you guys want to dig into or a specific question about your own businesses? So I want to make sure we get a chance to dig into that.
So just to make sure that I took notes. So thank you for the presentation. It was very interesting to see how SEMrush work and how it's very important to see the traffic source. And for the content performance, what advice do you going to tell us? So what, after we saw that like the Facebook library, I didn't know that. So thank you. Tomorrow we're going to check that. The content performance, how we can use that library to make sure to have a content that will be related to our competitor.
Okay, so when you are looking in the Facebook library, it is by time. So as you scroll, it'll say September 24, October 24, right? So you can see what ads are running at a certain time frame on any competitor. So some of the information you can get from that, those insights are, what is the copy that's being used, right? How is that copy and that ad imagery changing month over month, right? Like if things are going well, that is running, right? And some of these are seasonal, like you talk about a sneaker brand, right? Like they're going to change things up a little bit more. Sephora, they're going to change things up. But when we get to some of the more solopreneur, you will see, I see one woman who she's a coach and runs a program, and I'm like, she is on all of the different ad spaces. So she is doing ads in every place. And I'm like, she's really investing. And that's why when you go to later on in her email and she's like, want to see the behind the scenes of my massive launch, it's like, well, part of that is your massive ad spend, right? And so you understand and you have a realistic piece of that, because I think that's some of the stuff that's happening is that, people are marketers and they write copy and they're like, I'm wonderful and follow me and I do what I say type of, you're going to be successful. But there's also this other piece behind it, right? Who that's what you can get from that. Who is really investing in their ad spend?
And that's the piece that they often don't talk about. So I think like what's so great about what Sandra showed us today, it's like, it's often, here's what's really happening behind the scenes, because everyone will say, oh, I'm just like have the best, organic presence and everyone just, have 1 trillion people on my email list because I'm just so cool. But often it's like, it's shocking when you're like, wow, these folks are spending a ton of money on ads. Like if I want to get to that level, or if I want to be in that playing field, that's what I'm up against. And the other thing that Sandra just said that I think is the most actionable and a piece of advice she just said is, listen, if you go to that Meta library, for example, and you see one ad that's been, because in my experience, and this is probably what you too, Sandra, it's like, if an ad's working, they keep the same one rolling. And oftentimes, even as ad creative changes or whatever for businesses, it's like the one ad just keeps performing for years. And when you sneak and spy on the ad library, you can see how long an ad's run, and that's going to give you an indication if it's one of their top performing ads. You don't get to see exactly the metrics on the ad, but if it's running if they've kept it going for months and months and months or years, that is a winner for them. Okay,
and
guys,
the copy style. copy style is huge on that. You can read the copy, you can see the image, you can see if they're doing a carousel ad, a video ad, a static imagery ad. You know, those are things that you can then say, oh, we should do a video ad because those, all of the ads for Sephora are video ads. So, you know, if you're Ulta, you should be doing some video ads with product, with people, are that, you know, those type of things, because that's what the audience is connecting with and engaging with.
Amazing. Okay. So guys, check out Sandra, listen to the podcast. You can listen to our episode coming soon. And thank you so much, Sandra, for sharing all this information. It is always so interesting whenever I've dug my hands into this kind of competitive tools, how much you can learn and how useful it is. So if our community has any more questions, I know they can contact you directly on ways that we can use this better. But thank you so much for giving us a taste behind the scenes of how you think about competitive research.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And thank you for your engaged questions. I so love just chatting about it. So
it's so much fun. It's so much fun. Okay.
Thank
Thanks
you
everyone.
for
Have a
you.
great rest of your afternoon.
okay, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Good afternoon.